My brothers and my sisters, I ask you to listen with your hearts. We often think that every test in this life ends with a loud celebration or a clear sign from above. We wait for a voice to tell us that our struggle is over. But that is not how it works. Some hardships leave quietly without any big announcement. There is no signal from the sky saying it is finished. Instead, the weight simply begins to lift. You wake up one morning and realize the fear that used to control your mind is no longer there. The pain that used to define who you are has started to fade. You might wonder when this change happened, but the truth is simple. It changed the moment Allah knew your heart was ready. He does not end a test just because life is hard. He ends it when you have grown strong enough to carry what comes next. You might have thought the struggle was meant to destroy you, but it was actually building you. You might have felt that the delay was a punishment, but it was really a period of preparation. If you are still praying despite the pain and still trusting despite the many disappointments, then understand that you have not failed. You have passed. But Allah knows exactly when a test is truly over, and the first sign is when your heart stops arguing with Him. When a test first starts, our emotions react before our souls can understand the wisdom behind it. We look for logic in our suffering. Our tongues ask questions born from deep hurt, not from a lack of belief. We ask, why me, Ya Allah? Why now when I was finally feeling stable? Why did you allow this when you know my limits? These questions don't mean your faith is weak. They mean you are human. Allah created our hearts, and He knows how they tremble under pressure. He knows every tear before it falls, and every thought we are too afraid to say out loud. In the beginning, we resist. We try to push back against a reality that hurts too much to accept. We replay events in our heads, thinking of different paths we could have taken to avoid the pain. We think that if we just had an explanation, the suffering would stop. But clarity doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just makes the wound deeper. Slowly, a quiet change begins to happen. It isn't sudden or dramatic. It happens because the heart grows tired of fighting things it cannot control. The constant questioning starts to exhaust the soul. And in that exhaustion, you realize that arguing with Allah does not bring you peace. This is the moment you let go. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to overpower the wisdom of the one who sees what you cannot see. You stop demanding explanations, and you stop making deals with Allah, saying you will be patient only if He fixes the problem. You stop attaching your trust to specific conditions. Instead, a very simple and sincere prayer takes the place of all that noise. Why, Allah, I trust you even if I do not understand what is happening. That one sentence has more power than 1,000 questions. It is not giving up. It is surrendering to divine wisdom. This is a victory over the ego that wants to be in control. True peace does not wait for the storm to end. It appears while the storm is still moving. The Quran tells us that whoever relies on Allah will find that He is enough for them. It doesn't say He becomes enough after the problem is gone. It says He is enough while the problem is still there. Reliance itself is your protection. Many people think being strong means pretending it doesn't hurt, but that isn't true faith. Real faith is being honest with Allah about your weakness while trusting in His strength. When you reach this state, the test loses its grip on you. The situation might still be hard, but it no longer controls your inner world. Once a test no longer controls your heart, it has served its purpose. Allah doesn't measure tests by how much they hurt, but by what they produce inside of you. If hardship brings you humility and closeness to Him, then it has succeeded. Once the lesson is learned, the test doesn't need to stay the same. Sometimes Allah removes it, and sometimes He softens it, but the change always starts inside you before it shows up in your life. This internal shift is the bridge to a deeper understanding of why we are tested in the first place. When the heart stops fighting, it begins to see that Allah does not test those He has abandoned, but rather those He is refining. One of the most dangerous thoughts during a hard time is believing that Allah has turned away from you. When prayers seem unanswered and relief is slow to arrive, your heart might whisper that you are being punished or forgotten. But these thoughts come from exhaustion, not truth. If Allah wanted to ignore you, He would leave you in comfort but distant from Him. He would let you drift through life without feeling any guilt or any need to pray. That is true abandonment. Having an easy life without guidance is much more dangerous than facing a hardship that keeps you close to Allah. A heart that feels pain but still turns to Him is a heart that has been chosen. You only have to look at the lives of the prophets to see that this is true. The people most beloved to Allah faced the most severe trials. Abraham was thrown into a fire, Yusuf was betrayed and imprisoned, and Prophet Muhammad faced hunger, loss, and exile. None of this happened because Allah disliked them. It happened because He was preparing them for something great. Testing is a sign of attention. It is how Allah shapes the heart and stops us from relying too much on people or our own plans. A heart that never faces a test often becomes too attached to this temporary world, while a tested heart learns where real safety lies. Hardship is a tool of mercy that pushes us toward what truly matters. Instead of asking why Allah allowed the pain, we should ask what kind of love and strength He is building within us through that pain. Faith that hasn't been tested is often shallow, but Allah strengthens it by putting it under pressure. This pressure is never random. Allah tells us He does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. The test might feel overwhelming, but it is always measured. If you are still standing and still believing, it is proof that the test has not exceeded your capacity. This is evidence of Allah's care for you. Many people realize only later that their hardships saved them from becoming arrogant or ungrateful. It made them more compassionate and patient. Without those trials, they might have been successful in the world but empty in their souls. The test reveals what is hidden in the heart and uncovers weaknesses so they can finally be healed. It is not for Allah to learn about you, because He already knows you. It is for you to learn about yourself. When Allah invests the effort to shape you, it is because He intends to use you for something better than just your own comfort. As this refining process nears its completion, you will notice that you are no longer the same person you were when the struggle began. The final test doesn't leave you feeling powerful in an arrogant way. It leaves you deeply humble. When a test has finished its work, it softens your character. You stop being loud about your own strength and start being quiet about how much you depend on Allah. If a hardship makes you feel superior to others, then it hasn't finished its job yet. But if it makes you more aware of your own flaws and more kind to others, then it has reached its goal. Real strength is humility anchored in the knowledge of Allah. After a major test, you stop judging people so easily. You realize how fragile everyone is, and that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see. You no longer credit your survival to your own intelligence or planning. You know for a fact that you were carried through the dark times by a power greater than yourself. This humility changes everything about how you live. You become slower to criticize and quicker to make excuses for others. You stop expecting perfection because you have seen how messy growth can be. Hardship removes the idea that life is simple and teaches you that even a smile can hide a heavy struggle. Allah loves this humility because it keeps your heart open to His guidance. An arrogant heart thinks it knows everything and stays closed, but a humble heart stays teachable. You won't boast about how patient you were. Instead, you will remember how close you came to falling and feel grateful that Allah stayed with you. This gratitude replaces pride. You begin to realize that if you were left to yourself for even a second, you would be lost. This change also shows in your worship. Prayer is no longer just a routine, it becomes a sincere refuge. Your heart no longer stands before Allah with a sense of entitlement, but with a sense of deep need. A humble person doesn't carry bitterness or resentment toward the world. Even if the memories of the pain remain, the pain no longer defines who they are. They understand that the trial wasn't personal, it was purposeful. This understanding prevents anger from growing. When things finally start to go well again, a humble heart doesn't forget where it came from. It doesn't look down on those who are still struggling, because it remembers the days of crying out for relief. Humility makes blessings safe. Without it, success can lead to corruption, but with it, you can handle praise and wealth without losing your connection to Allah. If you find that you are gentler, more patient, and less impressed with yourself than you used to be, then the test has been a success. It has removed something dangerous and replaced it with something beautiful. This leads to a state of being where you find peace before your life even improves. Many people think that a test ends with a big change in their situation, but usually the peace comes first. The circumstances might stay the same for a while. The problems might still be there. But inside, the restlessness has stopped. The weight on your chest feels lighter and your soul can breathe. This peace, or sakina, is not the same as being happy or excited. It is a calm that stays in the heart, even when things are uncertain. It is the ability to face difficulty without being destroyed by it. When Allah grants you this peace, the storm might still be raging outside, but it is no longer raging inside you. You stop obsessing over worst-case scenarios. You stop rushing for a solution and start accepting that Allah's timing is better than yours. When the heart finds this peace, fear loses its power over you. You still feel concern, but you don't panic. You begin to believe truly that whatever happens, Allah is with you. This trust allows your prayers to change from desperate cries to steady conversations with your Creator. Many people miss this sign because they are only looking for external changes. But Allah prepares the heart first, because giving ease to a heart that isn't ready would be a waste. He makes you strong enough to carry the blessing before He gives it to you. You stop replaying the past and start looking forward. You learn that what is meant for you will never miss you. This doesn't mean you don't feel sadness, but your sadness is balanced by trust. You learn to say Alhamdulillah in every situation, knowing that while not every situation is good, Allah always is. The final stage of this journey is when your perspective on the hardship itself transforms completely. In the beginning, you beg for an escape. You ask Allah to just make it stop, because you feel you can't take any more. But as the heart matures through the trial, you stop asking for the exit and start asking for the lesson. You realize that the hardship has been staying because it is working on something deep within you. Your prayer changes from "Why Allah, end this" to "Why Allah, guide me through this and help me grow from it." This shift marks the moment the test has truly been passed. You are no longer fighting the decree. You are embracing the growth. The internal battle is won, and once that happens, the external relief is only a matter of time. You have become a person who is not moved by the changing seasons of life because your roots are buried deep in the trust of your Lord. Would you like me to explore more about how to maintain this inner peace once the test has passed? When the heart finally stops its inner conflict and surrenders to the wisdom of the divine, it enters a new stage of the journey. This transition is vital because it moves the soul from a place of resistance to a place of deep reflection. You begin to understand that the test was never about Allah being far away, it was about Him drawing you closer. But one of the most painful illusions we face during a crisis is the feeling that we have been forgotten. When the days of struggle turn into months, and the relief you've been begging for doesn't arrive, it's easy to believe that Allah has turned His face from you. But you must realize a profound truth. Allah does not test what He has abandoned. He only tests what He is currently refining and preparing for something greater. If He intended to leave you to your own devices, He would have left you in a state of easy distraction. He would have let you drift away without any sense of guilt or any urge to turn back to Him. True abandonment is not hardship. It is a life of ease that is completely empty of guidance. Think of the people Allah loved the most. The prophets were not given lives of constant comfort. They faced the most extreme challenges known to mankind. They dealt with betrayal from their own families. They were cast out of their homes. They faced hunger. And they buried their loved ones. If hardship were a sign of Allah's displeasure, then the prophets would have been the most disliked. But we know they were the most chosen. This shows us that testing is actually a sign of intense divine attention. It is Allah's way of stripping away your reliance on temporary things like your own wealth, your reputation, or the approval of people, and redirecting your gaze back to the only one who is permanent. A heart that never faces a storm often becomes too heavy with the attachments of this world. It is the storm that clears the path and reminds the soul where its true home lies. Hardship acts as a spiritual wake-up call. It takes people who were once distracted and makes them reflective. It takes people who never felt the need to pray and brings them to their knees in sincere conversation with their Creator. This doesn't happen because pain is good in a physical sense, but because Allah uses it as a tool of mercy to save us from ourselves. If you are currently in pain, but that pain is making you say, "Why Allah?" then you are in a state of grace, not a state of punishment. Instead of asking why this is happening to you, try asking what kind of strength is being built within you. Just as a physical muscle only grows when it meets resistance, your faith only becomes firm when it is pushed. A faith that has never been shaken is often quite shallow, but a faith that has survived the fire of trial becomes unbreakable. It is also important to remember that these trials are perfectly measured. Allah is the most just and the most merciful, and He has promised that He does not place a burden on any soul that is more than it can handle. This doesn't mean the burden will feel light. It might feel like it is crushing you, but it means you have the inner capacity to survive it. If you are still here, still breathing, and still trying to find your way back to Him, it is proof that the test has not exceeded your strength. Allah knows exactly how much pressure your heart can take before it breaks, and He never crosses that line. Many people look back at their hardest years and realize that those specific moments saved them from becoming someone they didn't want to be. The trial humbled them, it made them more compassionate toward others, and it gave them a depth of character they could never have gained through a life of constant ease. The goal of this refining process is not to leave you broken, but to leave you transformed. As you move through the stage, you start to see that the test reveals what is truly inside of you. It uncovers hidden attachments and exposes the areas where you were relying on yourself instead of your Lord. This revelation is a gift because you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. By bringing your weaknesses to the surface, the test allows them to be addressed and mended. Once the heart begins to heal and its perspective shifts from, "Why is this happening?" to, "What am I meant to learn?" the external grip of the hardship begins to loosen. You start to move from the middle of the fire toward the coolness of peace, which is the sign that the internal work is nearing its completion. This change in character is the bridge to the final realization that the test's end is marked by your own growth and humility. The more you accept this process of refinement, the more you realize that the person who entered the test is not the same person who will leave it. You are becoming someone who no longer looks at life through the lens of personal entitlement, but through the lens of divine gratitude. This shift is what truly prepares you for the next chapter of your life, where you can carry blessings without letting them distract you from the giver. You begin to notice that you are gentler with others who are suffering because you now know the weight of a heavy heart. You become more patient with the timing of your life because you have seen that Allah's delays are often hidden forms of protection. This internal evolution is the clearest evidence that the test has served its purpose and is ready to transform into something else. Would you like to see how this inner peace manifests even before your external circumstances change? As the internal refining process reaches its peak, the soul enters a state where the test finally achieves its highest purpose, the birth of true humility. One of the most beautiful signs that a trial has done its work is not that you feel powerful or superior for having survived it, but that you feel deeply, quietly humble. Real strength in the eyes of Allah is never about having a loud ego. It is about a heart that is anchored in its total dependence on the Creator. When you emerge from a period of intense suffering, you no longer feel the need to judge others. Before the pain, it was easy to look at someone else's struggle and wonder why they weren't stronger. But after your own heart has been through the fire, that judgmental spirit disappears. You realize how fragile every human being truly is, and you understand that everyone is carrying a burden that remains invisible to the world. This humility is a form of clarity that changes how you view your own life. You stop believing that your survival was due to your own cleverness or your own strength. You remember those nights when you had nothing left to give, yet somehow you kept going. You remember the moments when your spirit felt completely empty, yet you still found the energy to wake up and try again. Deep down, you know with absolute certainty that you were carried. This awareness replaces pride with a sense of profound gratitude. You begin to walk through the world with a softer heart, being slower to criticize and much quicker to offer an excuse for the mistakes of others. You no longer demand perfection from the people around you because you have seen firsthand how difficult and messy the process of growth can be. Allah loves this state of humility because it keeps the heart open and teachable. A heart that is filled with pride is like a hard stone that cannot absorb water, but a humble heart is like fertile soil that is ready to receive guidance. Hardship often breaks the ego specifically to save a person from spiritual decay. Pride can distance a person from Allah far more than simple weakness ever could. Once the test has finished, you won't find yourself boasting about your patience. Instead, you will find yourself reflecting on how close you came to falling and how merciful Allah was to keep you standing. Your worship also changes during this time. It is no longer just a set of movements or a checklist of duties. It becomes a sincere refuge. Your prayers become honest conversations, stripped of all formality, as you stand before your Lord with a heart that truly knows its need for Him. This internal transformation leads to the final hallmark of a completed test, the arrival of peace before the situation even changes. Most people expect that they will only feel better once the problem is gone, but Allah often grants a sense of sakina, or divine tranquility, while the storm is still active. This peace is not the same as being happy or excited. It is a deep, quiet calm that settles into your soul despite the uncertainty of your life. It is the ability to sit with a difficult problem without being consumed by anxiety. The external world might still look exactly the same. The bills might still be there. The illness might still be present. Or the loneliness might still linger. But inside, the restlessness has stopped. You have stopped fighting reality and started trusting the plan. When you reach this level of peace, fear loses its ability to paralyze you. You might still feel concern, but you no longer feel panic. You begin to understand that if Allah has brought you this far, He will not leave you now. This trust allows you to stop obsessing over the past and stop fearing the future. You stop asking, "When will this end?" And you start asking, "What does Allah want from me right now?" This shift in perspective turns your suffering into a source of meaning and your waiting into a period of growth. You realize that what is meant for you will find you, and what is not meant for you was never yours to hold. This realization removes the heavy weight of anxiety from your chest and allows you to breathe again. The test ends the moment you stop begging for an escape and start seeking guidance for the journey. In the beginning, your prayers were likely focused on asking Allah to take the pain away. But as you grew, your prayers became about asking Allah to help you walk through the fire with dignity and faith. Once your heart aligns with the wisdom of Allah, the test has already ended in the spiritual sense, even if the physical relief takes a little longer to arrive. You have won the battle inside yourself, and that is the victory that truly matters. Allah does not keep pain without a purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, the trial will either leave or transform into a blessing. You are now stronger, humbler, and closer to your Lord than you ever were before. In concluding this journey, we must remember that the end of a trial is rarely a loud event. It is a quiet graduation of the soul. When you find that you are no longer the same person who entered the storm, when your heart is softer, your ego is smaller, and your trust in Allah is unshakable, you have already crossed the finish line. The external relief is simply the final detail that follows the internal victory. Allah did not allow the hardship to break you. He allowed it to build a version of you that is capable of handling the great blessings and responsibilities destined for your future. The weight you carried was not meant to crush you, but to ground you. The delays were not denials, but divine protection. Every tear shed in the darkness was a seed planted for a garden of peace that is now beginning to bloom within you. You have learned that true security doesn't come from a life without problems, but from a life lived with the one who holds the keys to every problem. You have traded your restlessness for reliance and your questions for contentment. This is the highest state of the believer, to be at peace with the decree because you are at peace with the decree maker. Now that you have navigated these difficult waters, do not let the lessons fade as the ease returns. Let your newfound humility become your permanent character. Let your sincere dua become your constant language. And most importantly, let your story be a light for others who are still in the middle of their own storms. You are a living testament to the fact that Allah is near, that His timing is perfect, and that His mercy is woven into every difficulty.